Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Miss Vanessa. I'm the Youth Services Librarian at the Five Corners Library. And today, March 3rd, is a very important day. It is World Wildlife Day. And on World Wildlife Day, we are trying to raise awareness of endangered species and what we could do as our own species, as humans, to help keep other species from going extinct. So what I plan on doing today is going through a list of endangered species using a book titled Red Alert. And then afterwards, we're going to play a little trivia game to see if you remember the habitats of the species that we learn about in the book. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly, and we're going to get started on Red Alert. So here we go. So if you want to learn a little bit more about World Wildlife Day, here is a website. The website should be part of this program as well. And if you missed this program, you can always watch it again. That it is recorded. So that way you can try and figure out what it is that you can do to help animals that are critically endangered or on their way to extinction. So I definitely recommend you read a little bit about World Wildlife Day. I'm just going to go to our book. Here is Red Alert. It's by Catherine Barr, illustrated by Ann Wilson. And I just wanted to highlight something for you, a little bit about the organization that lets us know which animals are on the critically endangered list. It's IUCN. That stands for International Union for Conservation of Nature, and it's an organization that started in 1964, and it basically brings awareness to the world on animals that are critically endangered or going extinct. So that's a little bit about that organization. We're going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to learn all about critically endangered animals around the world. So these are the 7 continents, and some of the animals live in each place. Some animals are more endangered than others, of course. We'll learn about that as we go along. So these are the different places that these animals live, their habitats. We have the deserts, forests, oceans, rivers, grasslands, and mountains. So on this page, pay attention, because remember, we're playing a trivia game at the end. These are all of the animals that are critically endangered in this book and their habitats. So mountains, we have 1 animal here. Grasslands, we have 2. Deserts, we have 1. Actually, grasslands, we have, 2, sorry. Oceans, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Forests, we have 3. And rivers, we have 3. So we'll begin. First, we're starting with the blue whale. And a little bit about the blue whale. It's the biggest mammal on Earth, right? It's a mammal. And you could see how big it is because look at it in the ocean and how tiny the boats are on top, right? So some facts about blue whales. Blue whales swim in oceans all around the world except for the Arctic. Its song is louder than a jet during takeoff, so that's pretty loud. It has the biggest babies on Earth, and its arteries are so big that a human toddler could crawl inside them. So I know this is a lot of difficult visuals, but they're very large. That's basically what we're talking about here. And killing a blue whale was banned by the International Whaling Commission in 1966. So whales are very important, and we used to fish for whales, and we almost, made them extinct all the way back then. So on the danger list, they're on the red list. These are some of the things that make them endangered. They're accidentally hit by ships. They get tangled in fishing nets while migrating, and they have an overfished food source. So blue whales eat shrimp and krill, and we fish for those things as well, humans. So we're competing with the whale, and you see how large this animal is. It eats a lot, so we're taking some of its food source when we fish for the food that they eat. This is the Sunda pangolin. So we learned that the pangolin is the most hunted animal on Earth. That's what we're told here. And it's hunted for its meat and scales. So some facts about the pangolin. The Sunda pangolin lives in grasslands and forests across Southeast Asia. It has a tongue that's longer than its body. Its name comes from Malay, which is pangolin, which means one that curls up or rolls up in a ball. And it is one of the few mammals that is completely covered in scales. So this is listed as critically endangered. It's hunted for its meat and scales, as we said. There's limited conservation funding, so people don't know about the pangolin, so they don't send money to help keep the species alive. So there's limited conservation funding because it's a lesser known animal. Forest habitats are threatened by human activities. So of course, humans, we tend to go into wooded areas when we use the wood. So we chop trees down, and this affects animals that live there. And the pangolin is one of the animals that is affected by human activity. This is the Panamanian golden frog. So Panamanian golden frog actually waves. It's known for waving, and it does that to attract mates. So we see our Panamanian golden frog waving here. It's also poisonous, so watch out. Some facts about the Panamanian golden frog is its signals. The signals the frog uses are highly unusual for amphibians, which is the waving part. Its skin is poisonous to humans who touch it. And the Panamanian golden frog lives in mountain clouds, forests of Panama and Central America. So it lives in mountainous cloud forests. So it's probably very high up in Central America. And they're critically endangered because they are actually threatened by a fatal fungal skin disease that I'm sure we're trying to find out what's causing the skin disease. We might not know yet. Destruction of its forest habitat as humans build towns and create farms. So again, we tend to cut down forests, and that affects the animals that live there. As we expand, as we grow, we take away the habitat of other animals. So we have to think about that. And they're collected and sold as pets. I'm not sure why, because we've learned that they're poisonous, so this would not make a good pet. And of course, pollution of its freshwater habitat. Again, human beings tend to pollute water, and that affects the animals that live there too. Next, we have the northern rockhopper penguin. And as we can see, this penguin looks very familiar. If you've ever seen Happy Feet, this is one of the penguins in the movie. They're monogamous. They mate just with one other penguin for life. And some fun facts about the rockhopper penguin. It lives near the southern Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Unlike other penguins, it jumps rather than waddles. So they jump, they don't waddle. And it can dive up to 325 feet, which is very, very deep. So it's listed as endangered. It's not critically endangered, but it can be critically endangered if we don't help this animal. It gets caught in fishing gear, again, because penguins also swim in the water. So when it's in the water, it gets caught in fishing gear. There's an illegal collection of eggs. So people tend to collect eggs of different birds and animals to eat. And if you collect too many eggs, no birds hatch, and that affects the population. They are also, their food source is overfished. So the food source of the northern rockhopper penguin is squid and krill. And when we fish for squid and krill, we are competition for this animal's food, and we don't leave them food to eat. So we have to think about that when we fish. Next is the gharial. So the gharial is this big, it's a crocodile, and it has a long snout, and we see it has a little bump on its nose. We're going to learn about the gharial. It lives in large rivers in India and Nepal. The males grow to almost 20 feet, 6 meters long. Their snout gets longer and thinner as they get older. And the lump that we see here, it's on the male's nose, only on a male's nose, and it's called a gara. So we find out that the Garia here, it's listed as critically endangered. It gets tangled in fishing nets. there's too little water in its river habitat before the rainy season. So they live in rivers, and during the very warm seasons, the rivers dry up and there's not enough water for this animal to live in. So until the rainy season comes, they can die if there's no water for them to live in, obviously. And the river gets polluted. There's a lot of river pollution and damming by humans. So when we create dams, that affects the animals that live in the rivers, because we're basically cutting off water to certain areas. And if gharials live in the areas that a dam was built and they don't have water to live in again, that's going to affect the species. Next, we have a meaty story. We have the red-headed vulture, which is a bird, and we learned that vultures, they are scavengers, right? So they eat animal carcasses. These are animals that die. Maybe they were killed by another animal for food, or they just die naturally, and the vultures actually come along and they keep the environment clean by eating the animal carcasses, the animal bodies that are left behind. And animal carcasses can create diseases. So vultures are very useful creatures. And we learned that they are, they live in wooded hills and dry forests in India and southern East Asia. They help get rid of dead animals that could spread disease to humans and other animals. Males and females both cartwheel through the air to attract mates. And females usually lay only one egg per year. So they only lay one egg a year, and they're endangered. So this is a very, very scary situation, because these animals can easily be extinct. And that's why they're critically endangered. So we find out that they're poisoned by medicine used to treat livestock in some countries. So some animals that are dying or dead, they come from farms, and farmers give them medication, and when they die off and the vultures go to eat the carcass, they get sick from the medicine that's given to these animals by farmers. They're also poisoned by chemicals used to catch fish and birds at watering holes. So again, human activity, when we use any kind of chemicals that changes the environment of these animals, and they end up getting affected and dying off. And they're losing their nesting habitat because tall trees are cut for firewood. So again, cutting trees down affects all the animals that live in that habitat. Next animal, we have the Chinese giant salamander. So this animal is pretty big. It looks like almost like a dinosaur. So we'll have some facts about the Chinese giant salamander. The Chinese giant salamander lives in high rocky mountain streams and some lakes in China. In Chinese, it is often called infant fish because it makes a whining, crying sound. Oh, poor guy. It is the largest of all living amphibians, growing to almost 6 feet. So it's very, very big. And these animals are listed as critically endangered. They're hunted for their meat, which is considered a delicacy. So some people actually want to eat this. I don't know. For me, I'm not sure if I want to eat a slimy lizard, but it might taste good for some people. Their habitat is threatened as trees are cut and soil creates silt in rivers. So again, when we cut the trees down, we endanger animals that live in that environment. And we pollute the river there by farming. So again, farming chemicals, when we use chemicals in our soil to help plants grow or to keep animals from eating our crops, that affects the animals that live in the environment, so they get poisoned too. So this salamander is critically endangered from human activity. Next, we have the snow leopard. So the snow leopard is a mammal that actually has no roar. The snow leopard does not roar like other leopards. Some facts about snow leopard is they live in steep rocky mountains of 12 countries in Central Asia. It is sometimes called ghost of the mountain because it is shy and difficult to find. It wraps its long, thick tail around itself like a scarf and can jump like an acrobat. It can hiss, purr, and make puffing, chuffing noises. So it doesn't roar, but it makes a puff and chuff noise. And they are changed from endangered to vulnerable. So they're doing a little bit better than some of the other animals on this list. So they're illegally hunted for their fluffy white coat, because a snow leopard, if you actually look up pictures of snow leopards, they're super fluffy. Disappearance of its habitat and prey as domestic animals graze bigger areas. So their habitat slowly is changing because of climate change. A lot of snowy, cold habitats are getting warmer. And of course, animals that live in cold habitats are going to be affected by that. And there's conflicts with humans as hungry snow leopards steal livestock. So as the habitats of animals change, they tend to go into more human lived in areas and hunt for prey and animals there. And human beings might not be happy to have their livestock killed and eaten by the snow leopard. So it creates conflict between humans and the snow leopard. So it's really important to keep animals' habitats intact, so that way they have their own hunting grounds and they don't come to human lived in areas and begin to hunt there. Next, we have the Santa Catalina rattlesnake. And we actually learned that this rattlesnake is different from other rattlesnakes because they actually shed their rattle as they molt. So animals like snakes and spiders, they molt, they shed their skin to grow. And this rattlesnake actually sheds off its rattle. And they think this happens biologically because it helps them become a better hunter. So they can be more stealthy and sneaky. But they are still venomous like regular rattlesnakes. So this snake lives only in Isla Santa Catalina Island off the coast of Mexico. So it lives in only one place. It's a stealthy hunter and is good at slithering up trees. It has a heat-sensing pit between its eyes, right here, which helps it find warm-blooded prey. And it's listed as critically endangered. Why? Let's see. It's hunted and eaten by feral cats. It's caught illegally and sold as pets. So like our Panamanian frog that we found in the beginning, it's poisonous. So this does not make a good pet. So please don't get one of these for a pet. And there's limited conservation funding because of a lack of interest in snakes. So human beings don't fund any conservation efforts for this animal because a lot of people don't like snakes. They find them scary. I love snakes. I would be interested in helping this species survive because I think it's important to save all species. Even if you don't like snakes, they have a place here too. A Hawksbill sea turtle. So turtles are ancient animals. They're like dinosaurs, just like the salamander we saw before. So we'll learn a little bit about this Hawksbill sea turtle. It is found mostly in warm waters in the Atlantic, Indian, Pacific Oceans. It is called hawksbill because of its narrow, sharp beak. So we see here it has a narrow, sharp beak. And it helps keep coral reefs healthy by grazing on sponges and exposing food and shelter for other reef animals. And this turtle is critically endangered. It is hunted for its shell and eggs. Beach and coral reef habitats are threatened by human activity and tourism. So where they go to find food in the coral reefs are also threatened. So this affects the turtle. Climate change is killing coral reefs, and that's the food source, like I just said. And they get caught in fishing gear. So again, fishing gear is really bad for sea animals. Next, we have the actual coral reefs, the Staghorn coral reefs. So we learn a little bit about them by, they're found in the Caribbean Sea, in parts of Gulf of Mexico, in waters of Southeast Asia, and on the Australian Great Barrier Reef, which the Great Barrier Reef is huge and it's actually very beautiful, but one might not be able to see this Great Barrier Reef if our Staghorn corals all die off. It's an important environment that they occupy, the coral reefs, because they support a quarter of all marine life, a quarter. So that is very important. If the coral reefs are affected, a quarter of all marine life will be affected, because as you can see, the fish down here and the turtle that we just read about, they rely on these coral reefs for food, for shelter, to hide from predators. So this coral reef is very important to many animals. Coral is an animal itself, and it doesn't make its own food. So it's critically endangered. Climate change is the #1 factor. So as our Earth warms, our oceans warm, and this affects the reefs. As you can see, they're actually getting bleached by the sun and the heat. They're also destroyed by storms and extreme weather. They're killed by a coral disease that can possibly be because of the water being too warm. And they're harmed by marine pollution. So again, human activity, us having our garbage end up in the ocean, that affects the animals there. So if you visit a beach, please throw all of your trash away. Do not leave it on the sand because it ends up in the oceans and it ends up affecting the marine life that live in the ocean. Next, we have a small hairy story, and this is the peacock tarantula. So some facts about the tarantula. It lives in a small area of forest in central southern India. It's very aggressive and it has venom. So its venom can cause humans a lot of pain. Stay away from this tarantula. Even if you're not scared of spiders, this spider is poisonous. When it molts, when it sheds, like we talked about earlier, it lies on its back with its legs up in the air and it looks like it's dead. So don't go near this because it may not be dead, it might just be molting. And the females live for about 12 years, up to 4 times longer than the males. This animal, this spider, is listed as critically endangered. It's due to human destruction of its forest habitat. Again, we cut down trees. And as we grow as a species, some of these species that are living in the forest that we cut down, they are threatened by our activity. And the over-harvesting of firewood from its forest habitat. So again, cutting down trees is what's affecting the spider and its species. Next, we have the large-toothed sawfish, and we see how big this fish is. And as you can see already, we can see what's probably the #1 reason why this animal is critically endangered. It gets stuck in fishing nets. So let's read a little bit about this animal. It lives in fresh and marine waters around Australia. It can live up to 80 years, so that's a long time. Its mouth is under the front part of its body and is full of tiny teeth. And the newborn pups have fully formed saws that are covered in sheaths that eventually disintegrate and fall off. So the newborns are born with the same type of mouth, which is very long, and it already has the little teeth, but they're actually covered. And as they grow, those little coverings fall off, and then the teeth are exposed. So we'll find out why they're endangered. They get easily trapped in fishing gear, like we figured out based on this picture. It's hunted for its saw nose, for meat, for skin. The skin is for leather, and the fins, people like to eat their fins in soup. So this animal is very unlucky. It's caught in net. It's hunted for its meat, its skin, its fins. So this animal more than likely is in trouble. And the loss of habitat due to coastal development. So as we develop and we create beaches and areas for humans to enjoy the ocean, it has an effect on, again, the marine life there. Next, we have the bonobo. So the bonobo is a chimp that lives in the forest near rivers only in the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. It was the last of the big apes to be discovered. Like chimpanzees, female bonobos give birth every 5 to 6 years. So that's not a lot of baby bonobos. And that causes the species to go down. So if anything threatens this species, they only make a baby every 5 to 6 years. So that's going to have a big effect on their population. The bonobo is mostly vegetarian, with more than half of its diet made up of fruit. And we find out that it is on the endangered list. So why? It's poached for meat, forest habitat cut down to grow crops, and wars and other human fighting surround its habitat. So it's not critically endangered, but it's on the endangered list. And if we don't help this animal and start preserving its habitat, stop cutting down trees and poaching it for meat, it can end up on the critically endangered list. Next we have, of course, everyone knows about the giant panda. So the giant panda, some facts about the giant panda. They do everything slowly because bamboo doesn't provide much nutrition. The giant panda lives in bamboo forests and mountains of Western China. And if a panda has 2 cubs, it usually will only take care of 1. So I guess it can only handle 1 cub at a time. So the special thing about this is here we find out that the panda was changed from endangered to vulnerable. So it's not critically endangered, it's not endangered, it's vulnerable. And this is based on our efforts. So for the last many years, I'm sure you've noticed on World Wildlife Day, anytime we celebrated, the panda was one of the animals that are always featured. And because pandas are cute and cuddly, people like to spend money to try and preserve this species and make sure that it continues to live on, doesn't die out or become extinct. But even though the other animals might not be as cute and cuddly as the panda, we still should try and keep their species alive. So we find out things that keep it on the vulnerable list is their bamboo forests are cut down for farmland, their struggles to find the mate in isolated forests, and they starve because bamboo blossoms die about every 60 years. So their habitat is slowly shrinking away. So these are some things that you can do to help these animals that we just learned about. Some different conservation efforts. Again, you can take this book out on Hoopla. You can learn all about the animals. You can read more in depth about each animal that was featured here, and you can get to this page 4243, and you can learn about different organizations that help preserve these animals, their populations, how we can create environments that are more friendly for them, that will care for them. And while us as humans, yes, we live here too, we have to remember that we share this planet with all of these different creatures, and it's our responsibility to really make sure that they continue living on. Again, my name is Miss Vanessa. We're going to be playing a little trivia game. I hope you were paying attention to all of the habitats that we talked about here, because we're going to see if you can remember all of the different habitats that these creatures live in. And on this page, you could see we went over some of the red ones and some of the ones that are not as endangered. So this book is about 2 years old. I'm pretty sure that there's other animals that are either on the list now that weren't included, and some animals that may not be critically endangered and may have been helped due to efforts to keep them alive. So hopefully this program, inspires you guys to go out there and really find out how to help some of these animals. So let's play our trivia game, learn about these animals' habitats, and hopefully you will enjoy. See you in a minute. Hi again, we're going to start our trivia game. So let me just share my screen and we'll get started. So as you can see here, here's my slideshow. Let me quickly go to present mode so we don't get too much clues. Okay, so I call this game Name That Habitat. So first we're going to start off with a little bit of a cheat sheet. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to analyze this. Okay, so we're going to start a countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's begin. Blue whale, you should be able to get this quickly. So I'm going to give you a countdown of 3, 2, 1. Of course, you guessed oceans. Next animal, the pangolin. This one's tricky, so I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's the habitat? If you said grasslands, you are correct.
Next, Panamanian golden frog. I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said rivers, then you are correct. Next is the northern rockhopper penguin. So this one's a little tricky. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And where is this from? If you said oceans, you are correct. Next is the gharial. Gharial in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said rivers, you are correct. So the harder ones, I'll give you 5 seconds. The ones that I think are a little easier, I'm going to give you 3. The red-headed vulture. This one's a little tricky. We'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said grasslands, you're correct. And I know vultures, we think of deserts, but this one lives in the grasslands. Now we have the Chinese giant salamander. This one is tough, so I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you said rivers, you are correct. You're a smart group. Next is snow leopard. This one's easy. So 3, 2, 1. You said mountains, right? I mean, we see the snow leopard standing on a mountain, so I'm sure you guys got that one. Next is the Santa Catalina rattlesnake. And this one I'm only going to give you 3, 2, 1. This one should be easy too. Of course, you said deserts, right? Because most rattlesnakes and other snakes are in warm places because they're cold-blooded. The Hawksbill sea turtle. This one's easy too. So 3, 2, 1. You said oceans. I know you did. Staghorn coral. This one's also easy. So 3, 2, 1. And you said oceans because in our book, we remember the turtle and the coral were very closely linked. So if a turtle's in the ocean, the coral is going to be in the ocean too. Peacock tarantula. This one's tough. So I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You said forests. You're correct. If you didn't, it's okay. We're just trying to learn about the habitats of these animals. Large-toothed sawfish. This one should be easy. So 3, 2, 1. You said oceans. Next, the bonobo. This one should be easy too. So I'm going to give you 3, 2, 1. I know you said forests. And lastly, we have the giant panda. This one also should be easy. So 3, 2, 1. And we have, of course, forests. I know you guys did an excellent job. I thank you very much for coming and joining me for World Wildlife Day. I'm going to bring you back to our little cheat sheet here. As you could see, all of the animals that we listed, our cheat sheet shows you all of their habitats. If you want to check out this book, it's available on Hoopla. That way you can go more in depth and learn more about these animals. And remember to check out the website on World Wildlife Day and find out the most recent animals that have been added to the critically endangered list and find out what you can do. Make sure that you begin talking about these animals with your friends and family in school, so that way we can start going about the process of preserving the species, making sure that they are here living with us in harmony. We all live on this earth together, so we should all celebrate each other and take care of the wildlife that we live here with. Thank you and enjoy World Wildlife Day. Take care.